Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. It is Thursday evening, the 14th of February 2019. And tonight's topic, Kazakhstan adds gold to reserves for the 75th month in a row. That is a record among central banks. We're going to get to that story later in the program. We're going to also cover the recent developments with McCabe and Rosenstein and the wall and states of emergency. But first, let's take a look at the gold price and the silver price and the equity markets. So gold had a decent day today, even though the equity markets were relatively flat. They weren't really down that much, but the gold price had a sustained day. It was up 0.5%, up $6.27, holding above $1,300 to $1,312.28, and right now it's at $1,311.80. Now silver had an okay day, wasn't that bad, but not up as much as gold, which we've been seeing lately. Gold going up and silver going up a little less, and then when gold goes down, silver goes down a little bit more. And silver did manage a nickel gain today, up to 1560. That's up 0.32%, and right now it's at 1558, so just down a couple of cents from there. And the gold-silver ratio, the unsustainable gold-silver ratio should be 16 to 1, 15 to 1, no 9 to 1, all the nonsense that you hear. Right now it's at 84.2 to 1, and briefly, and we will cover this every night so that people understand my point of view, that the gold-silver ratio, there's no reason for it to go to 16 to 1 or 15 to 1 or 9 to 1 based on these relative rarity arguments or historic arguments. The historic arguments for gold and silver being at a 16 to 1 or 15 to 1 ratio were based on the fact that both were used and circulating as money. Currently, essentially neither of them are circulating as money, but gold has somewhat of a monetary profile. Silver has no monetary profile. They have completely different uses, they're completely different properties, they're different metals, and their relative rarity is pretty much irrelevant in determining their value. All right, now what happened in gold? Anything else happened in gold today? I'm not sure there was any big news. No, I did find this one amusing. When people want to bash Bitcoin, they come up with these really strange arguments. So there was this exchange, and the guy who ran it died and didn't leave the private key information, or supposedly this is what they say, to anyone, and therefore $500,000 worth of Bitcoin or Litecoin are lost. I don't know what this guy's saying. If they track and recover the cold wallet, it will prove how unsafe Bitcoin is. Now, if somebody fails to store their Bitcoin, I'm not sure how that makes Bitcoin insecure. If a bank gets robbed, that doesn't make cash insecure. It means the bank is insecure. But this one goes one step further. It's like saying they found the silver bars in an abandoned vault. But if they can crack that safe, get the silver out of there, it will prove how unsafe silver is. That's a nice try there. All right, now speaking of cryptocurrencies, let's take a look at those prices. They have been relatively showing a lack of volatility in the past, let's say 3 or 4 months, other than that little spurt that Litecoin did a few days back, which it's held pretty much flat day today, flat day yesterday, and so on. Bitcoin 3561, down 0.35%. That's not much at all. Ethereum down less than 1% to $119.25. Tracking along with Bitcoin Cash, which was at $119.98 right now, down 0.62%. And Litecoin at $41, down 0.1%. So not much of movement going on there. Now, the other thing that's been going on is they have been saying, institutional investors are going to come in. That's going to change the whole tenor of what's going on with cryptocurrency. He's going to start a new bull market after this so-called crypto winter. And the two big ones they're waiting for, three big ones, are a Bitcoin ETF, which may or may not get through. We've discussed that. And that comes down to probably, I think, getting 3 commissioners on board. I think there's 2 right now. And they have to sort out the storage issues and the market surveillance and manipulation issues. And what might help that is if the New York Stock Exchange BACS finally gets its approval through CFTC, and they're saying that might come now as early as March. Hard to say, but what BACS has done, they were supposed to launch in December. Since then, they've raised more money. They've done more acquisitions. They've claimed they've signed on more banks. So if this thing ever launches, it may be a really big deal because they say they've invested $1 billion in it. They just recently raised $187 million. And supposedly they want to get not just physically delivered Bitcoin options, and this is purely Bitcoin, at least to start, that's what they say, and then to allow the people who buy or use the platform to have storage with the platform, and also come up with ways to spend it at places like Starbucks. This is supposed to be a big deal. Now, the other big deals that are more likely to happen with less friction from regulators, other than the ETF and BACS, are Fidelity is opening up and setting up a platform for institutional trading of cryptocurrencies, as is TD Ameritrade, and they should be coming online sometime in March, I believe. So it could be March Madness with all this Wall Street type products coming online. And in some respects, it is antithetical to the concept of Bitcoin, which is supposed to be peer-to-peer and not necessarily going through all these middlemen and exchanges and ETFs and so on. But that's any asset that has value. I think Ann Renf made a good point. Smaulgld subscriber, he said gold is supposed to be the same thing, but of course we have gold locked in the ETFs, and they've financialized it and monetized it and put it in ETFs and futures contracts, so you would expect no different from Bitcoin. Now you're starting to see some of these wild Bitcoin predictions. There's this Bitcoin pumper here saying Bitcoin price to grow 6,844% this year. Yep. Okay. $250,000. There's that prediction. Here's another one. This guy's saying it's going to double within weeks. Okay. So it's going to go past $5,000. Now, either these people know something's coming up, like there's an approval, or they just, I don't know, like to make a name for herself. Now, actually, I'm going to play Moronica for this one. I thought I didn't have Moronica, but actually, for tonight, but actually I do. And it's actually less moronic, and it's probably, I don't know if it's deceitful, but it's definitely a little off kilter. So let's play the music and check it out. Oh, we got a moron here.
Presenting the distinguished international news commentator and foreign correspondent,
Smaulgld. This has been an extraordinary week in world affairs.
No, I told Hillary Clinton that that's moronic.
Jamie Dimon. I don't know who was a bigger high-profile basher of Bitcoin, whether it was Jamie Dimon or Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett called Bitcoin rat poison squared, and Jamie Dimon called Bitcoin a fraud, and he said if anyone at his company were found to be trading it, he would fire them. And then he doubled down like a month or two later, and then he said, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Well, looky here. JP Morgan going to launch the first U.S. bank cryptocurrency. Now, it's supposedly some type of stable coin that will allow trades to be settled, and you get your verification on the blockchain and so on. But Jamie Dimon trashing Bitcoin, fraud coin, who knows. Now, technically, it's not really Moronica. I mean, there are people that go with this blockchain, not Bitcoin cliche, and I guess that's where Jamie Dimon is going to rationalize what he's talking about. But yeah, when these people say these types of things, you just have to wonder what their motivations are, or whether they're doing it out of fear, meaning that they're concerned that the Bitcoin could dig into their business, or they're actually trying to purchase it and they're trying to drive the price down, or they're biding their time. Who knows? But you really rarely can take these types of outlandish statements at face value, because they know what they're saying when they say them. It's not like they're caught in an off moment and they've been drinking. They go on a show knowing they're going on the show, and they choose to say what they say. Now, I don't know what the motivations were. Maybe he does think Bitcoin is a fraud. In and of itself, that's somewhat of a moronic statement, because who's being defrauded? JP Morgan has paid about $35-40 billion worth of fines, I think from 2010 to 2014. And I think the underlying reason was fraud. So calling something a fraud, it's calling the kettle black there, I would imagine. All right, let's move on from cryptocurrencies, and let's get into some of the market news, and then some of the big news that's happening. And the two make this whole Russiagate and national emergency and the new attorney general, it may all collide. But let's look at this, what's going on in the markets now. We have seen it slow down. It appears to be a slowdown this first quarter, and we've seen Fed governors talk about how these 7 or 8 rate cut hikes that they've done over the past couple of years are going to start to bite, and that's probably why. Well, that's not probably why, but that's what they're saying is the reason they're taking this wait and see approach. They're slowing down on the rate hikes, even though it looked like they were on a severe rate hike path for 2019. That appears to be called off, as does the shrinking of the balance sheet. Those were all pretty much baked into the cake just as early as maybe 6-7 months ago, towards the end of 2018. But it looks now it's probably prudent, at least the way they think about things, in that if the GDP now, which comes out of the Atlanta Fed, they're saying Q1 may come in at 1.5%, which would mean there's really no need to raise rates if your reason you're raising rates is to slow down an overheating economy. Well, that doesn't look like it's the case. Also, the way they measure inflation, they're saying that the producer price index, they're really not in any danger of overheating either. So that is providing some underpinning for gold. Also, surprisingly, the dollar is still moving up, even though the Fed has looked like it has effectively called off their tightening. Dollar index at 97 right now. Now, what else happened? We had this, what's her name? She's out of Cleveland, Meister. Yeah, Cleveland Fed President Loretta Meister. I don't know what her name is. She's talking about now the Fed is planning to end its balance sheet runoff. So that quantitative tightening looks like that's coming to an end, and maybe even this current cycle of rate hikes, Janet Yellen may be right. The next move may be a rate cut. We'll have to see. And obviously, if the second quarter, we'll have to see where the first quarter comes in. If the second quarter comes in flat or negative, well, then I would think they might go for a rate cut. Just how long or severe would a recession be if it does indeed come? May not come, but other news, Texas oil at a record. Breaks 1970s record, and this is my whole concept of the new petrodollar backed by U.S. oil. The United States is now a bigger oil producer than Saudi Arabia. They're not larger in terms of exports, but they're getting there. And the United States is also the largest producer of natural gas and getting close in coal. So if you want an underpinning for the dollar, not that buying energy is the reason that the dollar is the world's reserve currency still, but you still need dollars to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, and you also need dollars to buy energy from the U.S. in the form of coal, natural gas, and oil. And this one is interesting. A couple of, maybe a week or so ago, Bernie Sanders and someone else, they were saying that they wanted to eliminate stock buybacks. And I view stock buybacks as somewhat of a form of market manipulation, because the company knows what's going on and they have cash and they just buy the shares because they think that the market is undervaluing their shares. Now, there's also a bit of free market in it as well, because you can't prohibit somebody who has the cash to buy the shares, but if the company's buying their own shares, it does seem to be a bit of self-dealing. To me, it seems less free market and more insider trading, but it is allowed. And I don't know if they'll ever get a rule passed on that to stop it. According to Bloomberg, it says, yell all you want about stock buybacks, they're not slowing down. And why would they? Because the way that corporations, officers, and directors are often compensated almost all the time are on the basis of the stock price. Now, generally, the stock price is a function of how well you manage the company, and part of how well you manage the company is coming up with products and services and innovations and making a profit and increasing your revenues. Well, if you can bypass all that and you just happen to have cash, or you can borrow money at low interest rates and boost the stock price, then you really don't have to do much. You can achieve that purpose just by adding some liquidity to the market. You buy some shares, the stock price goes up. That quarter, you show quarterly stock gains, even though maybe the company hasn't really shown much improvement. And you do that over a course of years. And, you know, a executive officer can stay there 5 to 7 years while the stock price is going up, cash out all the stock options. And who cares what happens to the company 7 or 8 years later? Because eventually, if you're not investing in the company, because either A, it's less profitable in a sense to do it, because the investment that you make in the company probably might not or may never turn any type of increase in revenue and profits. Whereas, you know, if you just take the equivalent amount of money and toss it into the stock market and buy your own shares, you're going to get that boost. So there's a disincentive to actually improve your company. And then yet you get lauded as a great manager because under your tutelage, the company and your officers have helped boost the stock price. But yeah, it's still going on, and that's one of the reasons that the stock market is higher. There's an incentive to do that, and unless they outlaw it, why would you not do it? It's something that is available to you as a company, the management of the company, the directors of the company. If they determine that that's the best way to maximize shareholder value, then who's to complain? If you're a shareholder in the company, you want to hear that the stock price is going up, because you really don't care. As long whatever happens, if you bought it at 20, you want it to be 30. You really don't care how you get there. And if they can get you to 30 in a quicker manner in less than a year, instead of research and development and innovation and hire employees and launching new products, and that might take 2 or 3 years if ever, go ahead and buy the stock back. I want my $30. All right, now, big news today. Now, this, you could save this from Moronica, but it's really not Moronica. It's actually what's going on, and it's hard to say what it is. Now, this guy, McCabe, he was the acting director of the FBI, and his wife had run for, I think, Senate or Congress in Virginia. Big fans of the Clinton. He was working on the Clinton investigation, and he hates Trump. And he admitted, this is just, to me, outstanding. I don't mean outstanding like a good thing, but just outstanding, and it's hard to believe that he have the audacity to say this. I think he's looking for kudos. He said that the Justice Department and a group of people in the Justice Department considered invoking the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from office. And this was around April, May of 2017 after he had been elected. He gave an interview on 60 Minutes. It's going to be aired on Sunday. But that was the general snippet that they played. But the reason this is outstanding is, first of all, the 25th Amendment, if anyone knows anything about it, it's designed if the, well, here's the language of it here. Whenever the vice president and majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such body, other body as Congress may by law provide, and then they determine that the guy's off his rocker, the woman's off her rocker, or they're just foaming at the mouth, or they don't know what they're doing, then they can make the motion to get rid of the sitting president. And then there's a procedure. The president can say, screw you, I'm of sound mind and body. Anyway, that's the procedure. Now, It is constitutional. It is the 25th Amendment. It came out, I think, in 1965, 1966. Whether it's a sound amendment or not quite sure, but it is a constitutional amendment. However, it is very clear that the impetus for this, and it could be subject to abuse, because the president can have a treacherous vice president, or the Senate would only approve people to his cabinet that are, people that dislike him. But that's still part of the democratic process, because if the Senate is powerful enough to only approve people that they want in the president's cabinet, then you can understand why you might argue that it's a check and balance. But in any event, however you look at it, the 25th Amendment makes absolutely no mention that whenever the FBI thinks, hey, this election was screwed up, we don't like the results, we are going to go petition the cabinet, and we're going to go petition the vice president to get rid of this guy. Now, there's the FBI is they're appointed bureaucrats. They're there to serve. They're there to protect. They're not there to undo the president and try to convince the cabinet that he needs to go. And they were talking, this is where the big debate is now, is Rosenstein has been accused of saying he was going to go wear a wire to go try to get Trump and say goofy stuff that make him look like a moron or unfit to be president, and then they can try to, what they call, count noses amongst the cabinet who might be in favor of trying to remove him. Now, Rosenstein denies this. This has a lot of drama involved because McCabe was fired for lying. McCabe he's got a criminal referral out on him for leaking. They both signed FISA warrants. There's a lot of a potential abuse on both sides. Rosenstein's not only signed a FISA warrant to spy on Trump, and he's now working in the Trump administration, was the Deputy Attorney General overseeing the Mueller appointment, which he's not doing now because William Barr was approved today, and Rosenstein is no longer going to be the Deputy Attorney General. So Rosenstein and McCabe are in this battle because McCabe is clearly saying, hey, we were all in on this. We were trying to get rid of this guy. He's right. He wrote a book, and then he's interviewing CBS, what is that show, 60 Minutes. It'll be on Sunday. So he's essentially admitted that he was trying to get rid of Trump, that he also forced the solidification of the Russian investigation right after Comey got fired to make sure that that was some type of permanent investigation. Rosenstein working with Mueller, trying to get rid of Trump essentially through the Mueller probe. And you also had Comey working and admitting to Congress that he leaked information to a buddy of his about his conversations with Trump before he got fired, again, in order to get a special counsel appointed to investigate Trump. So it's obvious. And then he has Strzok and Page and all these people that were working at the higher upper echelons of the FBI and the DOJ were clearly working to try to get rid of Trump. And no matter what they say, they actually say they were. It's kind of, they can deny that they did their job objectively, but then they betray their own statements to that effect because they said they were trying to get rid of him and they wanted to invoke the 25th Amendment. They wanted to have a special counsel. So I don't know how this is all going to work out and how William Barr is going to handle this, the new Attorney General. Now, apparently he's buddies with Mueller. However, a lot has been leaked out lately that Mueller doesn't have anything. And it makes sense that he doesn't have anything, because if he had anything, it would have been leaked out already. And all they've done is, I mean, if you have to go after Paul Manafort and Cohen for process crimes or tax evasion, or you have to send 29 FBI agents in SWAT gear and CNN filming the whole thing after Roger Stone, a 65-year-old, unarmed, basically political hack, you don't have much. I still don't understand that whole SWAT raid on Roger Stone, to have a pre-dawn raid on somebody who's not violent, and he's being accused of just lying to Congress. He's not being accused of withholding evidence. He's not being accused of any form of treason or any form of a felony crime. He's been accused of, maybe it's a felony, I don't know what it is if you lie to Congress, but knowing that many people lie to Congress, and the way you can, if you're so interested in prosecuting them, is you issue an arrest warrant and you arrest the guy. You don't send 29 people to his house. But this is why I think that there's really nothing in the Mueller probe at all, because once you're going after people like Jerome Corsi, Roger Stone, it's obvious there's not much there. And then when Mueller indicted 35 Russian troll farm people and said there was no connection to the Trump campaign, indicted them but couldn't follow up on the prosecution because they're not in the country. It appears to be more of a PR thing. But that's going to play out. But then the question is, what happens with people like McCabe and Comey, Rosenstein, who look like they effectively abused their positions, went way outside the scope to try to influence the election, as Comey did, trying to exonerate Hillary Clinton in advance, but then also trying to take down Donald Trump, which it appears there's a lot of evidence to that. There's much more evidence that that happened than Trump colluded with any types of Russians. Now, of course, Trump finds out about this McCabe, 60 Minutes says, and Scott Paley was pretty stunned when he was in this little round table on CBS. He said there were meetings at the Justice Department at which it was discussed whether the vice president and the majority of the cabinet could be brought together to remove the president. Now, again, that's not the FBI's job to determine whether the president is fit to be president. There's now a 25th Amendment, and the people that would be most likely to be able to discern whether the president is fit are the people he works with every day, which are the people in his cabinet and the vice president, not the people in the FBI who just don't like him. And then Trump came out and he said, disgraced FBI acting director Andrew McCabe pretends to be poor little angel, when in fact was a big part of the crooked Hillary scandal and the Russia hoax, a puppet for leaking James Comey. IG report on McCabe was devastating part of insurance policy in case they want. Trump appears to be well versed in what's happened, and I'm sure he's even more versed than people who are well versed, because he's probably seen a lot of the source documents, and I imagine he may be meeting with William Barr in the coming days to go over what, if anything, they're going to do about that. I suspect nothing will come of any of this, but it is pretty amazing how just the things like the raid on Roger Stone, and the fact that for 2 years they've been investigating Trump on the basis of who knows what, it's pretty frightening that they've actually spent this amount of time, the entire time, and the media the entire time, trying to get rid of Trump. Now, I understand partisan politics, that's what you're supposed to do, but that's the job of the other politicians. So whatever Nancy Pelosi does or Chuck Schumer, have at it. That's the political process. They should be trying to take him down every day. But the media and the FBI and the DOJ, no, that's not their job. They're not there to act as foils for the Democratic Party or the politicians. They're there supposedly to be in a neutral position. All right, what else happened today? Now, the wall, there's another big issue here. Now, William Barr, I guess you understood, but he was approved today, 54 to 45, a vote, so probably either is sworn in now or be sworn in tomorrow as the new Attorney General. Now, just in there is a bill that went to the Senate and passed. I think it's getting passed right now by the Congress. Trump has said he will sign it. That will, well, kind of. It really doesn't provide the funds for the wall. There's conditions on it, where it can be built, where it can be built, where it can't be built, whether mayors can say, well, you can't build it here. The amount that's earmarked is only like $1 billion or so. I think Trump has thrown the towel in and basically said he's going to declare a national emergency and then build it anyway. Now, the problem with this is the Democrats have immediately jumped up and said, okay, you want to start declaring national emergencies? Well, wait till we get in the presidency. we're going to declare national emergencies on things like gun violence and climate change. Now, the gun violence one, there's not much you can do. The president cannot declare a national emergency and say, I don't like what's going on, so I want to suspend the Second Amendment. That's like saying there's a lot of people talking, the national emergency, they're talking against me, I'm going to suspend the First Amendment. That's not really a viable threat. However, the climate change one is, because the president can decide, if the president can decide that there's a national emergency at the border, he's not violating the Constitution by trying to take measures to stop whatever he says is a national emergency at the border. Similarly, if a president decides there's a national emergency with climate change, he or she would not be violating anything in the Constitution or anything legal if they believed there was a national emergency with respect to climate change. Now, what it would come down to would be a political issue. It depends on if the president declares a national emergency and says, okay, we're going to stop all fossil fuel, whatever it is. Now, at that point, then you might have political pushback where whatever the national emergency that was declared and whatever actions were taken pursuant to the national emergency, if they had a negative impact on the American people, then yeah, the president could declare it and even have it upheld in court, but it might not be upheld in by the people if whatever the president does actually created economic displacement or any other inconvenience or potential economic disaster. Whereas this wall thing, really no one in the United States is going to be disadvantaged. The most disadvantaged people would be non-citizens or people trying to get in the country. So there's not a lot to All right, sorry about that. I got cut off there, but I was watching to make sure. I was saying that in a national emergency of the type that Trump is declaring, he's not violating any type of constitutional rights, and he's also not really disrupting the country as such. So declaring a national emergency is not going to be a political disaster for him because, first of all, he's not looking to spend a fortune on the wall. And as I mentioned, a lot of people aren't going to even know that it's going on. And one of the reasons they're saying don't declare the national emergency is that it'll come back to bite you. Pelosi is already talking about, and so are Democrats. If we have a Democratic president in 2020 or 2024, they may declare a national emergency on things like climate change or gun control. And I mentioned something like gun control. You cannot declare a national emergency and say, because there's a national emergency, I'm going to vitiate the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and just say, well, I'm going to override it because there's a national emergency. You might be able to get away with that for a short period of time, but you couldn't institute the abolition of the Second Amendment because of a national emergency. You couldn't, the same way you couldn't say, well, we can't have free speech anymore. You got to get rid of the First Amendment because people are talking too much. However, I mentioned that with climate change is a bit different. The president could declare a national emergency with respect to climate change and could order certain things to happen, but that may have a deleterious impact on the economy, which would mean that the people might not go for it. And of course, it might get struck down in the court, but there might be precedent if Trump gets his national emergency to say a president can act in this type of way to spend money in order to alleviate or to try to combat a national emergency. But I don't think it's a good idea to say don't declare the national emergency because the Democrats could do it anyway, because even if he doesn't declare a national emergency now, they'll declare a national emergency anyway if they feel like it. And again, this, I think, with the wall is a much different thing than saying we're going to declare a national emergency on gun violence, because that would impact the Constitution itself and would also impact millions of people, whereas this wall thing isn't impacting, it's not much money, and it's not impacting the Constitution, and it's not impacting that many people. But we'll see. Now, the other thing that Trump is talking about here is, I guess this is connected to the new Green Deal, is out in California, they want to build this high-speed rail between San Francisco and Los Angeles, and first it was going to cost $20 billion and $30 billion. I think it's up to $77 billion, and now they're realizing Trump is calling it a disaster. That's his favorite word for things he doesn't like. But it is turning out to be a financial disaster because it doesn't go from downtown San Francisco to downtown Los Angeles. I don't know. They're both the 2 points that it travels are 40, 30 miles outside of each of the respective cities. And it's not a 2.5 hour trip. Now they're saying it's a 4.5 hour trip. So Gavin Newsom, the new governor, former mayor of San Francisco, governor now of California, is saying that let's just scrap this thing. And they have a loan from the federal government, $3.5 billion. Trump says he wants that back. Now, if they did declare some type of national emergency, or they got this new Green Deal put through, well, then Gavin Newsom wouldn't have to borrow money from the federal government. The federal government would just fund the whole thing because that's part of the initiative. By the way, I think tomorrow night I want to cover MMT. I don't know if any of you guys are aware of this. There's this new wacky kind of economic theory that's even beyond Keynesianism. It talks about how not only is trying to balance the budget not a good idea, it's actually the worst idea, and that you should actually strive to be even more in debt. It's actually something the Democrats are using to justify a lot of the things when you say, well, we can't pay for this. And they're like, sure we can. We just print the money. And they say, well, we don't have it. And I'm like, yeah, it's the deficits don't matter, I suppose, on stairs. We'll give a full economic analysis of that maybe tomorrow night. If anyone wants to read up quickly on that, I've done some research on it, and it does seem to be. We might even start the show with, we got a moron here, but it is economic lunacy. But with like every bit of lunacy, there is a little kernel of truth in. I mean, they are getting away with if you think about it, everyone is saying the debt is unsustainable. They said that when it was 6 trillion, when it was 10 trillion, when it was 18 trillion. One day. Well, who knows if that one day ever come. All right, so that's what's going on with the wall. And so the president's going to declare the national emergency, and then we'll see how that all goes probably tomorrow. It's a big day tomorrow. You'll have Barr on the job. You'll have on Sunday, everyone will be hearing McCabe say how he tried to orchestrate a coup against the president and gather up the cabinet and the vice president to get him tossed because he's off his rocker. And you'll have the emergency declared. Then you'll have William Barr sworn in. All right, let's move on now to the topic of the evening, which is the Central Bank of Kazakhstan. Now, we've been following Kazakhstan looks like for a few years now. I picked up on Kazakhstan a long time ago. Everyone was saying central banks are buying gold. The only central bank that was buying gold was Russia and Kazakhstan. They've been saying the central banks are buying gold and just adding up Kazakhstan and Russia and saying, you see, central banks are buying gold. They were the only ones. In 2017, there were no central banks other than Russia and Kazakhstan bought like 90% of the gold. It's only been in the past 6 months that we've seen actually some central banks other than Kazakhstan and Russia buy gold. China came back into the gold buying, the People's Bank of China, in December 2018. Then we saw India buy in the fall of 2018, the Reserve Bank of India. We're talking about central bank of countries, not people in the countries. We saw Hungary add for the first time, just a one-off purchase. We saw Poland do the same. We saw Mongolia, Kazakhstan. So there were a number, there was 9 or 10 banks this time towards the end of 2018 buying gold. Now it's central banks are buying gold. That is all I need to know. But the ones that I focus on are the ones that buy it all the time and why they buy it. And those clearly leading the pack far and away are Russia and Kazakhstan, both gold-producing nations. Russia last year, 272 tons added, and Kazakhstan over 50 tons in 2018, just rounded up their Numbers for 2018 was a record year for them, adding 50 tons of gold. They only mine about 70 tons of gold a year. You can see the nice climb that they have here, 150, 160 tons over the last few years. So, and you can see it's a record 75 months in a row. There's been a few months over the past few years where Russia has not added. But one of the reasons that we always talk about Kazakhstan and Russia, they have horrible currencies. So it makes total sense for them to add their gold from their backyards, from their domestic mining productions, into their central bank reserves. And look at this, the Kazakhstan tenge or tenge, I don't know how you say it. Someone told me it's tenge. But look at in 2009, it cost 100,000 tengeses, whatever they're called, to get an ounce of gold. Now it costs 500,000. So it's a five-fold increase in 10 years in this Kazakhstan. But even since 2016, it was 200,000. It's more than doubled, and it's still five. Even in 2018, it cost 450. Now it's 500. So clearly in the best interest of Kazakhstan not to hold its own currency and not to hold or Russian rubles. Right. Now, let's see where Kazakhstan ends up in the league tables. Also, the amount of foreign reserves that Kazakhstan has, I believe, is about 30 some odd billion, of which 14 billion are in gold. I think it's 47% of the reserves are in gold. So it must be about 32, I think it's about 32 billion. I'll get you the exact number in a second. In overall reserves, and of that 14 billion are in gold, and that's 351 tons. You can see they're in some decent company there. The Central Bank of Kazakhstan actually has more gold than the Bank of England, has more than Lebanon, Spain, Austria, Turkey, and Belgium, even more than Saudi Arabia. And Portugal has 380 tons, and Kazakhstan's got 351. If they do another year with 50, then they will move themselves past Portugal and towards Taiwan. Now, the ECB, I think, has 510 tons. It'll be a while till they get there. And then India has 580 tons. But Kazakhstan, a large country, small population, small GDP, lots of gold, though. Here's another chart you can see. Let me see if I can give you those Kazakhstan numbers as well. I'll have the blog post out tomorrow with all these charts. You can see them. And, yeah, so Taiwan's at 423. So Kazakhstan probably won't get there. It might get there in 2 years if they keep adding 50 tons a year. I mean, that would take them to 450. So they won't get there next year, but they could crack the top 10. Get past the ECB, and it'd be odd to see a country like Kazakhstan. But then again, they have gold in their backyard. They're increasing their gold production. Just 10 years ago, they only produced about 10 tons a year. Now they're up to about 70 or 80. So it makes sense that they're pouring that gold back into their country, into their reserves. Yeah, 46.53% of Kazakhstan's overall official reserves are in gold. Gold back tenge. Game over, game changer. See, all that gold that they added hasn't done anything for their currency. Just a point. Somehow people think that if a country has gold, they're secure, they're smart. Hasn't really helped them at all. As you've seen, the price of gold versus the tenge, which is in a sense backed by gold because nearly half of their reserves are in gold, doesn't really help. All right, what does help is having small gold mugs, because they are real wealth. There's some people who still doubt that. I'm very, very surprised. Now, you know, someone who really understands it is Lucky. There's Lucky giving the coy look. What a fine dog that is. And there he is. He really likes his small gold mug, and he spends a lot of time with it. I'm very appreciative of when people send me pictures of their dogs themselves, their cats, and their pictures with small gold mugs, because That's real wealth. Mugs will never go to zero. All right, let's see what you guys are thinking. There's your Smaulgld mugs there. Also, thank you to my patrons who are very loyal. PayPal, people who send donations via PayPal. Or I've received some very nice surprises in the Smaulgld P.O. Box. P.O. Box 714, Dover, New Hampshire, 03821. Thank you to those who have sent many generous gifts, and then also those who send, sometimes anonymously, Bitcoin and Litecoin. And you can do that via those QR codes, or all the ways to donate and support Smaulgld are on Smaulgld.com. You can order your mugs from Smaulgld.com. Just keep in mind, if you want the classic and super classic mugs, the one on your screen right now, they get shipped directly by me from Smaulgld headquarters. They go priority mail, priority shipping. You get them in 2 days. The other mugs, the travel mug, the beer steins, they get shipped from the pet bowls, and all the other Smaulgld products, they get shipped from the Zazzle Smaulgld store. All the links are over there on the Smaulgld.com site. Also, if you're interested in precious metals, Smaulgld has affiliate links from SD Bullion, Money Metals Exchange, and Golden Eagle Coins. It's another way of helping the site out. It's not investment advice to buy gold or silver, but they have, for between the three of them, and I've gotten good reports on all of them, lots of different products ranging from Silver Eagles, Canadian Maple Leafs, Australian bars, rounds, all types of silver products, gold products. You can compare pricing and shipping at those links. And if you do ship or buy from those links by clicking on the links below this BitShooter YouTube or on the Smaulgld site, and you buy there, you pay no more, no less than if you visited those sites directly. And Smaulgld gets a small commission. So it's another way of helping yourself out, increasing your stack if that's what you're doing, and also helping Smaulgld out because the price is the same and Smaulgld gets a small commission. All right, what are you guys saying? I'm sure you guys are talking about commissions. That's what's on your mind, right? Let's see what you guys are saying. Where are you? There you are. All right. And it's here. State of emergency, yes or no? Looks like that's what he's going to declare. And there's no wall money. It's also stupid. I agree. You know, this is only an issue. It's just become a partisan issue. Most people are not that concerned. On the one hand, that most people are not that much opposed. It's come down to the Democrats just are against the wall because Trump is for it, not because they've thought it through. Every argument I've heard against the wall is an argument that is a straw man argument because they say, well, it doesn't stop people overstaying their visas. Well, who said it did? Who said it was supposed to? Or they can tunnel under it. Of course they can. But you can't run a caravan through it if it's there. I mean, there are certainly limitations to what a wall can do, but there's certain things that it does do. And then when they say we can use technology, it's like, yeah, you can use technology and a wall. It's almost like we have to come up with every reason why a wall isn't perfect, and that's the reason not to have it. Even if you have technology and you see people crossing the border, well, now you've seen them cross the border. Good luck. Now what are you going to do? If you had a wall there and you saw them coming, well, you might be able, the wall might stop them, and you might be able to get there to prevent them from entering the country illegally. So I just don't understand it, because also there are walls all along the southern border. They're just not everywhere. And if you're really against walls, then just remove all the... No one's saying they should remove all the walls. If they are, then they're essentially in favor of open borders. Now, it's perfectly fine if your point of view is you want open borders. Well, then say it. But to argue that you want border security, but we just don't want a wall because Trump wants it, any border security is going to include a combination of any type of security. Whether it's computer security, you always have to have a multi-pronged approach. You don't just have a wall. You don't just have technology. You don't just have drones. You don't just have people at the border. You don't just have different ports of entry. So you have as many different ways of creating a secure perimeter. And obviously, I mean, it is obvious. It's not partisan. It's obviously a wall is part of that. You can't argue that it's an either-or proposition. The only reason anyone argues it's either-or is because either they don't want border security, they want open borders, or they don't like Trump and they don't want him to have his wall because he said he made it a big deal. All right. All is one is here. I haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you back here. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Okay. Pablo Pena, Mint Mark. When I add the Smaulgld gold mug, that's a real game changer to my stack. Yeah, by the way, if you want the Smaulgld gold mug, it is now available over at the Smaulgld store. In fact, it's got another 14 days left. That is a limited edition mini muggage. That mug will not be offered in March. It is a mini muggage. The Smaulgld gold game changer mug. Yeah, Mint Marcus, Pablo, I need to add some mugs. You need to stack mugs. Ann says, I can barely keep up with all the new things. Coinbase is going to allow us to store private keys in the cloud. I also saw they're going to allow, I think, Bitcoin Cash. It's Bitcoin ABC. It turned to Bitcoin something or other. They're going to allow you to get the fork on that if you have anything over there. I didn't hear that off Trump picking new attorney general. Who is that? Says Pablo. He picked William Barr, and he's going to be appointed. And then I think he's going to appoint somebody, Deputy Attorney General Rosen, I think is his name. Yeah, Schumer joined with Byrne, the odd couple or not, says Scott Wardell, about making it illegal, I guess, to do stock buybacks. Domino's now accepting Bitcoin via Lightning Network. That I didn't know. That's interesting. What every man should have says Palladium up 50% in 6 months, up $150 to the moon. Yeah, Palladium's worth more than gold. Go figure. Any special aspects on Barr? Not sure what you mean, Pablo. DB Stupid says greetings. Oh, Lewis, any reasons why Trump picked Barr? Well, I don't think that Barr is a Trump fan. I don't think he's like, he's not in Trump's corner. He was a Bush appointee. He had been Attorney General. I think he picked him because he knew he'd get confirmed. I mean, he's not known as like if he had tried to appoint like Giuliani or DeGenova, any of these people that are Trump supporters, they might not have gotten through. So I think he went with a safe choice. Actually, if you have any common sense as a attorney general, there are certain things that are clearly misconduct from the FBI and the DOJ. I mean, the fact that you had the FBI and the DOJ working to try to remove Trump from office, if you're the head of the you don't allow that to happen. That's just pure partisans. That's not doing your job. I mean, anybody, you don't even have to be on Trump's side. You just have to be saying this is not what the DOJ and the FBI are about. And in fact, it seems that they were really, really offended when Comey got fired, which, if you remember, well, no, maybe you don't, but when Clinton became president, he got rid of all the district attorneys. He just replaced them all. That's what they don't rebel and they say, oh, we can't have this. Now we got to remove Clinton. It's his job if he wants to have, just like when Obama wanted to have Holder. Yeah, that's his job. You don't say, we got to get rid of him because he's appointing people we don't like. It was the same with Trump. He gets rid of Comey. He can fire Comey whenever he wants. And they decide, no, we can't. We're in this for life, and he shouldn't have won, and we should all still be here, so let's get rid of him. I think any respectable attorney general would not allow that to happen. I don't know what Sessions was doing when he allowed all this to happen. I'm not going to get involved. Well, okay, well then just quit because you're not doing anything. All right, what else have we got here? You guys are talking about the yellow stuff all the time. Let's see. DB Stupid. Why does Kazakhstan have a trash currency? Because it probably has a trash economy. I mean, I don't know, and I don't follow Kazakhstan. Not many people spend their. I'm sure there's not many Kazakh scholars in the United States that are up on the intricacies of the Kazakhstan economy. People probably just take high-level views of, their economy, but understanding how it works. I doubt there's many people that follow Kazakhstan, but Kazakhstan is a Central Asian country, resource-rich, small numbers of people. I guess because it's in today's world, the fiat currencies that are worth the most are the fiat currencies that come from the larger economies. That's fact, so to speak. Euro, yen, yuan, Swiss franc, dollar, Canadian dollar. The Kazakhstan tenge is, what's backing it? $30 billion in reserves. So what? $14 billion in gold. Well, what's $14 billion in gold? Well, we know it is. It's 350 tons. It's not that much. Yeah. You see, DB Stupid is thinking logically. Is like, well, okay, it's small, but it's sound. Well, they don't think of it that way. And then you look at the amount of debt that China and the U.S. have, and the massive QEs that Japan and Euro are doing, European ECB, European Central Bank, and you'd say those are the worst currencies. They've got the most, quote, unsustainable debt. China's debt, it's three times GDP. The United States, everyone knows, has a $24 trillion deficit plus the unfunded liabilities. We know that the level of QE that ECB has done is larger now than the Fed's was. We know that Japan's been doing QE for 20 years, negative interest rates, and yet those are the strongest currencies in the world. In the order of US, Euro, and then probably Japanese yen. Unbelievable. Thank you, Lewis, says Pablo. He looked upright this time. I don't know what happened. I've tried to make that picture, the other pictures, a lucky turn upside down, but I think they don't work properly. All right. DB Stupid. Let's see. What does he say? You're asking a question. When central banks purchase tons of gold, is that direct purchase from miners or is delivery from London or some exchange? I know that Russia buys, I don't know if they buy directly from the mine. I think they buy through a Russian bank. So transaction all stays internal. And I would imagine Kazakhstan, they don't ship their gold. They might ship it to Switzerland to be refined and sent back, but they don't buy on the open market, the countries that have their own gold. China doesn't. I mean, China does, but not with the 400 tons that they produce. They do import plenty of gold elsewhere. They get it from wherever they can. But if you have gold production in your backyard, you generally try to run that internally. DB Stupid, your thoughts on the milkshake theory? I don't know what it is. All I know is that whatever his name is, what's his name? Santiago Capital. He has very similar views that I've had for a long time too on the U.S. dollar. I don't know exactly what the milkshake theory is, but I have been saying all along this whole game over game changer dollar collapse is a bit of nonsense, and you can go back why I said the Fed would raise rates back in 2015 when everyone's saying they couldn't, they wouldn't. I was saying they would because they need to protect the dollar. What a lot of people don't realize is that the dollar is the most important asset that the United States has. Not the stock market, not because without the dollar they can't do what they do. And the dollar is actually in demand around the world despite all this de-dollarization, game over, game changer, gold, back yuan, the BRICS have had it. All these stories are really, they don't reflect the thinking or the markets. They reflect the hopes, wishes, dreams, aspirations of people who like gold. And they think if the dollar collapses, then they're going to be rich. And they think that the whole world, like China, is their gold buddy. And they're going to help bring down the dollar. China runs on dollars. China has a lot of dollars. Yeah, Russia doesn't like the dollar. But remember, the United States picked that fight. It wasn't Russia picking the fight with the U.S. from a point of strength. Iran's had it. Yeah, well, the United States picked the fight with Iran too. It's not like these countries are standing up to the United States. They're just standing up to themselves after having sanctions imposed on them. But as I mentioned, the Chinese state-owned banks borrow almost exclusively in dollars. China has $1.2 trillion worth of U.S. treasuries. The dollar is the currency that you go to places like Argentina or Turkey, Venezuela, they'll take the dollars. That's what they want. So I've never bought into this whole dollar collapse story, mostly because we know that the world isn't going to go on a gold standard. That's not a big talking point amongst any of the central banks. And for better or for worse, they're the ones who run the monetary system. It's not people on YouTube channels and people ranting and raving. It's the people that run in these, you can call them criminal banks, whatever you want to call them, but they don't want gold. They're not interested in gold, and they all want dollars. They may not like the idea, it's imperfect and so on, but they know that there's nothing else that's even remotely close. The next closest reserve asset is the euro. Well, good luck with that. I mean, the euro is very imperfect, got a lot of problems. The monetary union is nowhere near the type of monetary union the United States has with the dollar. You don't even think of the dollar in terms of local currencies of New York versus Florida versus the way you do Italy, Germany, France, and so on. Greece. It's totally different. And that's the second strongest currency. After that, you go down to the yen, you go down to the Swiss franc, the Canadian dollar, and the Australian dollar. And then finally, the seventh largest held currency, reserve currency, is the yuan. That's only held by 1.5%, 2%. So what's going to crush the dollar? It's not going to be the yuan. Yuan is in worse shape in terms of debt, in terms of transparency, in terms of corruption. That's not going anywhere. So the biggest threat, what's it going to be? Japan? No, I don't think that's going to be. It has to be the euro. But that's not any better off than it's worse off than the US dollar. So if people are transacting, the world is transacting in a currency. What gives the dollar value is not that it has any backing value, is that everyone uses it. Now it's almost like circular, but it is circular. People use the dollar because people use the dollar. So why do people use the dollar? Because everyone else uses it. Yeah, but why do they use it? Because everyone uses it. There's a barrier to entry there. What else are you going to use? Oh, they're going to gold trade note and then they're going to ship silver on a pallet. No, they're not. Well, someone might, but not in big numbers. That's why the dollar hegemony still reigns. There's nothing on the horizon that's going to knock it off. And I don't know what this milkshake theory is. Very clever marketing, whatever it is, because people talk about it. The only thing is, the milkshake theory, my criticism of it is I don't know what it is because milkshake doesn't mean anything to me. I mean, it's not like when Herman Cain said 999. You knew that the 9 were different tax brackets. 9% for corporate, 9% for individual. But milkshake, I don't know what it means. I'm sure the theory is very similar to what I'm talking about, is that the dollar is going to continue to have strength. Now, eventually, all of these systems, any fiat system, any man-made creation eventually goes away. Roman Empire, anything, British Empire, Soviet Union, and the currency that's attached to it goes away. That's not arguing with that. But generally, I think as long as the United States remains the United States and doesn't become some socialist backwater or divides into civil war, then the dollar will remain the strongest currency. And we're not moving away from paper currencies, digital currencies. That's what they are. They're run by central banks. Bitcoin, I don't know. I don't think that's going to be a international currency. It's going to be a niche currency. It might be a strong currency. Same with Litecoin, all those, but they're not going to trade on the same levels. At least I don't think so. At least not this year, not next year, not the next year after that. And the amount of gold out there, it's not conducive to trading as a currency. In fact, the reason all these countries are buying the bits that they're buying is they want it as a store of value. They don't want to use it. The reason you get dollars is not to store value. It's to spend it. Or the reason you buy treasuries is because treasuries pay a higher interest rate than Bank of Japan, than ECB, who have negative and zero interest rates. So you're well off with the U.S. Treasuries. You can get 3% on a midterm short 10-year bond as well. Stock market rolls over next month. Yeah, everyone says that for the last 10 years. Canada has no gold. That's right. And yet Canada, think about that. That's an ironic thing. Canada has a relatively strong currency and has no gold. And Kazakhstan's got half of its reserves in gold and has a crappy currency. Same with Russia. Russia has 18-20% of their reserves in gold, and the ruble's not doing very well either. Everyone says Canada has it in the ground. So does the U.S. U.S. has a lot of gold in the ground. A lot of countries have gold in the ground. But it costs money to get it out, and it costs money to refine it. All right. Guys are talking about Canada. Fiona Whalen, Smaulgld isn't a true alternative to gold, as it's not fungible. I like Maneko 64 mug more so. Smaulgld mug isn't real game changer. All right. Let's see. Z-Spec. Smaulgld. Knowing about the crypto? No. Fact. I've never heard of it. Fiona. Smaulgld mug is well diversified. Fiona Whalen. I have so many mugs from so many channels. I think I need to diversify into plates or knives or something. Well, you can diversify into glass. Smaulgld has Smaulgld glass. We also have shot glasses as well. So whatever you're interested, Fiona, you're more than welcome to. Remember, if you buy a Smaulgld mug, limited time, you get a Smaulgld Game Changer eraser. But that's only for the Smaulgld Classic and Super Classic that I send out. Keep measuring your wealth in mugs. That is right. I measure my wealth in many things. Z-Spec, Smaulgld. Did you see... Small AU. Did you see Armstrong's New Socratics talking about it here? No, I didn't. What they call, is it the Federal Reserve Banking Cartel? Right. No, I didn't see that. Fiona. In 1989, in the Soviet Union, we also thought that nothing would ever change. There were a lot of people, a lot of problems. A couple of years later, 270 people woke up without a country. That's right. Oh, I did. That's exactly my point. That the idea that the dollar is going to collapse, again, the only way it's going to collapse is if the United States collapses. Now, that's possible. I mean, but the idea that the way we stand now, that somehow the U.S. is worse off than the other currencies, I don't see it. I think the Eurozone has got a far greater chance of imploding than the United States does. Now, you know, the thing about this stuff, it all can change on a dime. But currently, the United States is more stable than Europe. The economy of the United States is better than Japan's. So the idea that somehow the dollar is going to collapse, I would say look at the other currencies. Some of them already collapsed. Venezuela, Argentina, Turkey, tenge. You know, there's a lot of currencies out there that are doing very poorly. And a lot of it has to do because the dollar's doing very well. DB stupid. Dollar strengthens while it weakens all others. Gold rises with dollars. I got to bring those charts back and show you guys the gold versus other currencies. It's beaten almost every currency. Although it's even beating the dollar this year. But let's see. Okay, Jack says if silver rises, say Mexico is the largest silver producer in the world, will be hard buried across with silver from Mexico. Yes. Mexico is the world's largest silver producer, 200 million ounces a year produced, but they don't keep it in their country. It's interesting. All right. Daniel Gummer, can you do a show on Germany's hyperinflation of the early 20s? Well, that might be a fun show to do. Yeah, I'd have to pull together some information, but that's always instructive. You know, the bigger inflation was Hungary. Might be interested in doing that. Fiona says you never know when things will fall apart for good. Well, that's true too. Yes, but the difference is they've been saying the dollar is going to collapse since 1971. I mean, they just keep repeating themselves. End of dollar hegemony. I'm not sure. Oh, DB Stupid, I'm getting spammed by Zazzle now. Thanks, Smaulgld. Well, cut them off. Only buy from them. And you don't need to hear from them. Unless you... Anytime I work with a company and they spam me, then I just unsubscribe. I'll go back to the site if I want to buy the products, but unsubscribe. See, Smaulgld, when you buy a mug from Smaulgld, I don't put you on any kind of list at all. I just send you the mug, and that's it. I send you the mug. If you subscribe to the Smaulgld website, then you get the blog posts. Not all of them. You get them when they come out. But I don't send you promotional materials. There's no ads on this BitChute or this YouTube. There's no ads you got to click through. I'm not in the middle of a stream and all of a sudden an ad comes on. I just pump the mugs. And then that's it. All right. So, yes, if you don't want to order through the Smaulgld Zazzle site for fear of my getting a few too many emails from them, obviously you can unsubscribe there. But order directly from Smaulgld and you get them in 2 days. That is the Classic and Super Classic. You don't get the same diversity of mugs. I mean, there's the beer steins. But, I mean, the beer stein, Fiona, I don't think you've seen the beer stein. I don't think you'd be talking about Maneko's. I don't know what he has. There's no way that the Smaulgld mugs, these well-designed mugs, are not far more attractive than the Maneko 69 or whatever he is, his mugs. He's got a cuter dog. Maybe, no, you haven't seen my dog. His dog is cute, though. But, yeah. There you go. Those are those mugs. But you haven't seen the beer steins, Fiona. And they are some of the finest. I don't know which is better. The 22-ounce Smaulgld beer stein or the 16-ounce frosted. It is just a stunning mug. Let's see. I'm going to show it to you right now. It's got gold trim on it. Look at that. That looks like it could come out of Deutschland there. A beautiful mug. I've got one of those. I also have the Smaulgld frosted mug. It's really cool. Let's see if I can find it. There's glass too. See, there's a glass. Smaulgld glass. Very fine acquisition if you're stacking. And I'm going to show you what there's your beer stein. There you go. All right. Please pick them up. Stack on, mug stackers. And we'll see you tomorrow. Unless there's any other comments. Coco wanted a pet food dish. Somebody did buy a pet food dish. And they promised me they're going to show their pet with the snout in the dish. The pet food dish is really cool. For those of you who like to send pictures with your dog with the Smaulgld mug, I mean, it's really unfair to the dog that he's got a human mug that he can't stick his own snout in. But if you look, see people send pictures of, there's a cat. That is Linda with her cat there, with her Smaulgld mug. But I want to show you the pet bowl, which is really cool. Gotta find it. There's Buddy with the Smaulgld glass. What a cute dog that is, huh? You got the Smaulgld glass. He's got his snacks in there. We've got Roger out in Australia doing knockoff mugs that he uses to feed kangaroos. Not kidding. He feeds kangaroos with this mug that he made himself. Look at this. Unbelievable. Smaulgld Game Changer Hyper Classic mug, he calls that one. But you don't want one of those, Fiona. What you want, if you have a dog, you want to get him the Smaulgld mug. Here's the gold Game Changer. This one says Game Changer on the back, and you can write Game Changer however you want, different formats. But that one you got to order from the Zazzle store. For you Litecoin fans, there you go. You can get your Hodl Fuel coffee, and then it goes into your Smaulgld mug there. That's from Johnny Litecoin. He's like Johnny Appleseed for Litecoin. Remember, you can defend yourself with a mug. You can put gold and silver in a mug. Look at this guy did. Put his gold in there. Smaulgld game changer mug. There's no way Maneko43 has sold more mugs than Smaulgld. This is mug life. He doesn't even come close. Look at that. You could put Mountain House in a mug. Still haven't shown you the pet bowl yet. But remember, let's see. Where's the mug? The pet bowl. Well, I can't find it, so I'm going to have to leave you with mug life. There it is. All right, Fiona, you now have many choices in front of you.